cost plus, I guess generally speaking, everyone calls it an open book contract. So the idea is you've got a relationship with the builder, you've worked just with one builder in this case, which is often the case, rather than going to tender. But the idea is that it is the cost of your trades plus the builder's margin. Ultimately, a fixed price contract is your build contract with a fixed price. It's as simple as that. Unless you've got some provisional sum or prime costs, which are ultimately costs that can move.
I think it's important to really highlight the PC sums and make sure that people understand them and know what they are, because in your experience, if a PC sum is in there, when it's done, how often is it less than the PC sum and not more?
Not often.
Not often. So you can assume it's going to go higher.
I think...
Welcome to the Development Tank, powered by ReadyBuild, bringing you the best price and value in knockdown rebuild and dual occupancy projects. If you're planning a single or a dual home build, book a call with me. Just scan the QR code on your screen or visit littlefishproperty.com/call to get started. And for all the property nerds out there, head to littlefishnetwork.com/free to unlock exclusive insights, property tools, and the best online property community in the game, completely free. Let's get into the pod.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Development Tank. Today we're going to talk about contracts, build contracts, cost plus versus fixed price, where to use each one, and the pros and the cons. We've got Claire back, head of our projects team, currently managing circa 80 projects and been involved personally in over 250 projects. So a good one to talk to about this topic. Thanks, Claire. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me again.
Still like that intro?
Loved the intro.
Big one, wasn't it? Probably undersold it, to be honest. Those numbers are probably unders at the moment.
Yeah, maybe just.
Awesome. Let's get straight into it now. I know we use probably fixed price contracts a bit more, but both contracts have their place, so we want to go through it today. Can we start with fixed price contracts? And can you explain them in your words, what they are, what they do, and then we'll get into some pros and cons.
Yeah, sure. So fixed price contracts, you're right. That is what our bread and butter for our clients here at Little Fish. Probably for a number of reasons, which we'll probably go through naturally in this conversation. But ultimately, a fixed price contract is your build contract with a fixed price. It's as simple as that. Unless you've got some provisional sum or prime costs, which are ultimately costs that can move. But the idea is that your contract is $1.7 million. At the bottom line, you sign it and the builder will build that for $1.7 million.
Yeah, nice. Simply put. Now, when you talk about, for the people playing along at home, for the prime costs, are they things that you want to minimise in your contract? Is it better just to, I guess, from the builder's point of view, if something isn't resolved, is that something they go, hey, we'll throw a PC sum against it?
Yeah, so sometimes when you'll do a tender, we were talking earlier about fixed price contracts downstairs, and the key is, I think with a fixed price contract, there's a lot more work that needs to go into it before you get to contract stage. So there might be at tender stage, the builder might have 5 provisional sums. And the question is always, hey, builder, what do you need to fix these? Why have you put provisional sums against it? And it may be, I can't fix the drainage cost because we're still waiting on drainage endorsement. That's a common one because we like to overlap stages here. It might be, I can't fix the joinery because there's some unresolved details or we're not sure about this. So ultimately we will spend that post-tender clarifications to resolve those provisional sums and then ultimately fix them. The idea with a fixed price contract is to fix every cost in there.
Yeah, great point. So even if things aren't resolved, maybe take that little bit of extra time, roll the sleeves up and get those details finalised, wait for that documentation or that approval to lock it all in, because it does leave the door ajar for the builder to potentially charge a bit more when that act or that invoice comes in or those works are done. So take the time, do the work and get it done.
Absolutely. I think a good way to or a good way that we look at it is if there's 5 provisional sums, a total of $100,000, so maybe $20,000 a provisional sum, and one builder has submitted that, and then we have another builder who has 0 provisional sums, we look at it and say, well, we've got $100,000 of risk in this fixed price contract. Yeah. So a provisional sum is definitely a risk. It's not to say that the builder will go over, but as an example, if it's landscaping, which is towards the end of the project, there's a good chance in 12 months' time that $20,000 landscape quote is going to be $25,000. So I guess that's the whole purpose of a fixed price contract is banks like them because they are fixed and you know what you're going to get. Clients like them because they can budget. So don't allow yourself, I guess, to rush it and go in with half a dozen provisional sums or prime cost allowances that then make that 1.7 or 1.8 by the end of it.
Yeah, spot on.
If that makes
sense. I think as I'm hearing you say this and thinking out aloud, I think make sure for people playing along at home to make sure that, you know, everyone just scrolls straight to the bottom and checks the price, which one's cheaper, great. But if one could be cheaper, but it could have some prime costs in it, that then give the builder the ability to then become more expensive, but they've already won the work, so you're already in bed with them. I think it's important to really highlight the PC sums and make sure that people understand them and know what they are, because in your experience, if a PC sum is in there, when it's done, how often is it less than the PC sum and not more?
Not often.
Not often. So you can assume it's going to go higher.
I think, and I don't want to be quoted, but I think contractually a provisional sum has a 20% swing either way, and that's how it should be priced.
Yes.
That's not to say it always is priced that way, but I believe that is the general rule.
So you can nearly count on it being 20% more than what it is.
20% more, or straight on, we often have. But either way, I guess in the same token that you want to firm them all up before you enter your fixed price contract, it's all about sort of weighing up that risk. So if you've got a $20,000 provisional sum that is going to take 6 weeks to resolve and is $20,000, and you've had the open conversation with the builder and said, what are your thoughts on this? Like, what have you based this on? I've allowed $20,000 for the lighting because that was my last 5 jobs. I think we're comfortable with it, Claire. Don't hold up the project 6 weeks to resolve that $20,000 provisional sum for lighting.
Yeah.
When you can start moving, knowing that everyone's pretty confident, and then at least when the builder and yourself go to finalise the lighting, and he says, it's going to be 45, you say, well, because you've got that relationship that you've built, we talked about this, it was 20 grand, you said it was within budget. And most of the time, I would say if you've had the open conversation, I don't think they will work with you to get what they said.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And a little bit tongue in cheek earlier, but I think the way to actually resolve and actually work with a PC sum is, like you said, my last 5 jobs that are comparable to this have cost 25. Then you can sort of see the last 5 jobs and go, yep, that makes sense. Then at least when the time comes and the price is the price, it's fine. But if it is over, it gives the builder the ability to say, hey, I know we had the conversation, but as you can see with your job, that is different to what we said. And then you as the client can appreciate that and go, okay, cool, that makes sense. Or it could go the other way, and it just gives you a benchmark in the relationship to go, hey, this isn't what we thought. So,
or go back to the $25,000 budget because I'm happy with the ones you showed me.
Yeah.
So you've had the conversation. I guess definitely always talk about them and understand why the builder has not fixed the price, and then at that point decide what's the risk to you. Do I need to resolve it now, or can I get started and resolve it later? But just knowing that, I guess, overall, if we put a blanket rule, the idea is to go in with a fixed price contract and everything is fixed.
Yeah. No, beautiful. Well said. And I think, which is a lot of stuff that we talk about, a lot of it's about relationships as well. So that relationship factor can help and hold it together when things change a bit. Let's go to cost plus contracts that we use less of because we do appreciate certainty here and appreciate everything being locked away. And, it's our job to do the hard work to get it all locked away. But how would you explain a cost plus contract, Claire?
So cost plus, I guess generally speaking, everyone calls it an open book contract. So the idea is you've got a relationship with the builder, you've worked just with one builder in this case, which is often the case, rather than going to tender. But the idea is that it is the cost of your trades plus the builder's margin. So potentially speaking, the joinery will be priced. This is an example. All your trades will be priced. So your joinery might be priced for $100,000. But once it comes to letting that package, the builder might go out to 2 more joiners or work with that one builder to get it to $95,000 and then add their margin on top of that. So I guess it's going back to that statement. It's an open book with peaks and troughs. It can go up or down. Yeah,
and it sounds like it allows a lot more flexibility as well. So you get that joinery package, a quote or two from the cabinet makers. You're looking at them, 100, 120, what they've allowed for, and you sit down with the builder, open book, and you say, well, they've allowed that, they've allowed that. Why did I took that or I made that change? And you end up at 85, and you go, great, let's move forward to 85, plus the builder's margin, and then sort of you push on. And that goes back to, I guess, all that hard work you put into getting a fixed price contract. The work that you've done is more littered across the project as those stages present themselves.
Yeah, and I think a key point is, or a key difference between the two is that in a fixed price, a builder, they take on that risk that they have to build it for the 1.7, but they also pick up any reward. So if they had a joinery price at $100,000 in that contract, and then they decided to go and get another joinery price and it was 80, they pick up that 20 grand difference. In the cost plus, the builder really isn't taking on risk as such. They're committing themselves to a fixed margin, whatever it may be, and that's open. And then they're committed to working with yourself to find and work within budgets. But then I guess their margin is protected. So they're happy to do the work to get extra quotes. But again, if they find a cheaper trade, they don't pick up additional margin for that.
Yeah.
Their margin comes down dependent on that cost.
Yeah. So cost plus contract, the builder should always get their margin. And then with fixed price contracts, and the thing is, I guess in recent times, fixed price contracts haven't been kind to builders because everything has gone up during the contract, and a lot of builders have just struggled to break even or protect or achieve some margin, I suppose, as it's gone up in the fixed price contract.
Yeah, and I think both contracts have their place in the world. I no doubt over the years there's probably a generalisation around cost plus that it's too much of a risk. And when, like we talk earlier, that we do fixed price contracts here, there's a lot of reasons for that. Like, I guess, even though, yes, we live in the resi space, in what we develop, it's a very commercially minded way we develop. It's about profitability most of the time, if not all the time. So I think... and
just mitigating risk, locking things in, anything that is floating, lock it down, just so we can control the outcome, essentially. And
a lot of, I guess, our clients would have banks involved and lend the builds. And that is definitely more appealing. So I think even though, yes, cost plus contracts have maybe their generalisation that it's the builder always wins, I think they have a place when it comes to, or often you'll see in a very high-end residential space, $15 million builds or $10 million builds, owner occs, more so areas that may also not be developed as much. So like the design might not be as developed. You'll know that the joinery, a client might want to start the build, but the joinery hasn't been resolved. So I think there's a place for it, and I don't necessarily think it should be feared, but there's an element that you need to be a cash client, and you also need to have a really good relationship with that builder and trust one another. It's never going to work. A cost plus contract is never going to work going in thinking the builder is the bad guy. It's never going to work.
Or the builder thinking the client's the bad guy. It's definitely an arm in arm, hand holding type relationship. So I guess you touched on it there, but in my mind, it's the expensive resi type jobs that are usually cost plus, where you got owner occupiers, often got healthy budgets, and may not exactly know everything and want to make all their decisions at the front end as well. Might think, once we're framed and I can feel and touch and feel and appreciate the space, then I'm going to go through and do my joinery
and sit down
layout
with the joiner, and I want to understand what's in that quote and what joiner we're using, and I want to say in that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of positives to it for the right project.
I think it's the right project and the right client, because even when you think about it, like they push off the wall, they knock down the house previous, and then they start, and then they've got to have a lot of confidence that they're going to be able to get there, no matter what sort of path they pick along the build. So I think with the fixed price, obviously dealing with banks and, like you said, dealing with lending and just viability of project, having enough money to get to the end. That's why everything needs to be fixed. So we go, okay, we can see the end. But people with confidence that may not exactly know what they want, that's where you usually see a cost plus. And when someone's dead set on a builder, I suppose, as well. And there's
no general, I don't think there's any general or fixed rule on which contract needs to be used on which project. I think naturally that's the world it lives in, the high-end space. Big owner-occ homes or big cost price or big project budget homes, that's where you'll see cost plus. But also post-COVID, you mentioned earlier, builders got scared, a lot of builders went under. I think post-COVID we saw builders maybe changing their direction, saying that I won't do builds unless they're cost plus to protect their margin. And it wasn't coming from a place of I want to make more money. It was purely I want to make money. Yeah. Simply that. We also saw builders keeping the fixed price contract, but then slipping in price escalation clauses into their special conditions. So you saw trying to be in the middle. I think legally that really had no weight because they were signing a fixed contract build, but I guess there was fear from builders' side that they were going to be in these fixed price contracts and not be able to finish a project. Yeah, understand. There was an example when we were doing a development post-COVID down in Ocean Grove, and a very different market to Melbourne with the builders and the way they build. And we went to tender, and 3 out of the 4 builders were only going to be using cost plus contracts. Purely coming out of that COVID space and just working in a different environment. And again, like I said, it wasn't about trying to make more money. It was just that the way that they built and the clients that they worked for, probably maybe more owner occs down that area, or larger budgets, like you said before, but that was their policy. Yeah, I like it. So we're thinking it's all about relationships, all about the type of project. It's about the client's capabilities and financial capabilities. That's a big one. Yeah. I think that probably sits at the top of tree as far as where their capabilities are. And then leaning into, okay, is this a straight investment play, or is this a owner-occ going to live in an endgame home play? And also getting your ducks in a row and having all your decisions made before contract. So if, like you said, if you're not someone that's going to know everything, and you're financial, well, you're probably going to push off on a cost plus. But if you got your ducks in a row, or maybe got a PM engaged, such as Little Fish, that's all organised and all the things are nominated and the work's been done, well, then you're a Monty for a fixed price. I think it's a really interesting topic overall between the two contracts, because there's definitely a lot of positives of doing the cost plus, but I think you need to be a more hands-on client. Not often, but with a lot with our owner occs, they want to be very heavily involved, and there will be a fixed price contract, and say they make a joinery change, and the variation they're hoping, or the credit variation they're hoping to get back, is not what they wanted. And then they'll ask for quotes from the builder. It's legally, the builder doesn't have to give up any quotes. So the credit they give back is the credit you'll get, essentially. You can argue, and sort of negotiate and say, I don't think that's fair. But ultimately, again, that fixed price build contract, the builder has a lot of right, and they have I guess they take on the risk, but they also take on the reward. So as a person and what sort of build it is, how involved you're going to be, probably also determines which path you want to go down.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And no doubt we've seen, especially this COVID time, post-COVID time, when margins are getting squeezed because of labour and materials going up throughout the journey of the build. Well, you want to make a change 3/4 into the build.
Yeah,
it's a good chance your credit's going to be quite low, and your extra and over is going to be substantial, because that margin's gone, and they're trying to claw back that margin and get their touch of a cost plus contract inside the variation. But before that, when margins were still good and still strong, there was probably that more. Things were probably maybe a little bit fairer when it comes to variations.
And not to mention when you're looking at quotes at tender time for stone versus 8 months down the track, there's going to be a natural price increase. So your credit or your extra over is always going to be bigger than what it would have been if that was repriced 8 months previously. Yeah,
that's right. So if you're going fixed, make sure you stay fixed and don't put the work in to be fixed, and then make these changes throughout the build that then opens up Pandora's box again.
The key is, I think, with a fixed price is there's a lot of work that needs to go in before you get to contract, a lot of reviewing, a lot of finalising, like we were talking earlier, with the provisional sums, fixing them if you can, and making sure that whole contract's tight. And that's a set and forget. Let the builder build what you've documented and what you've spent the last year doing. Cost plus is, yes, you need to be more involved as the journey goes, but you also don't need to be as resolved when you start the construction journey.
And you can assume that a fixed price contract may be faster to build than a cost plus contract that has its little stalls whilst we're making decisions and negotiating and all this sort of stuff.
Correct.
A fixed price contract allows the builder with confidence to go, this is exactly what they want across the board, so let's go.
And I think that's know what sort of client you're going to be, or what type of project it is. If it's purely investment and development, fixed price, I'd stand by fixed price is the way you want to go. You want unknowns, and you want to be able to track that return as you're building, with knowing every step of the way. Once you're out of the ground, you're pretty safe with a fixed price contract. I think the cost plus, and we keep talking about owner ocs, bigger budgets, I think it has a place, but I also think you need to be involved. You want to be reading the quotes. If you get a quote, you might need to go to a joinery meeting, you might need to go to select stone, you might need to pick other things. You're probably going to be more involved.
Okay, Claire, fantastic. Thanks for coming on. Whilst we wrap up, tell me, which one would you go for and why? Fixed or cost plus contract?
I think, Peter, it's a hard question just to answer as a blanket rule, but generally speaking, if I'm doing an investment, if I'm doing if I'm doing a little fish project, naturally the fixed price contract gives a lot of security and allows you to control it, like we said earlier. So I would lean towards that. But I can't help but say I love the idea of a cost plus contract. I love the idea of having a good relationship with the builder, being fully involved, working through the joinery with the joiner. And I think if I had the cash ability or the finance ability and it was my dream home, I'd go that way.
And you'd love to be involved, and which you need to be in a cost plus. So there you go. Great answers. Awesome, Claire. We'll probably see you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks for having me.
Please, guys, anyone that's going to get value out of that, please share with them, and jump in the comments. If you guys, what contracts are you guys using and why? And do you have any more questions on this? And like I'm saying, get in the Little Fish Network, because all these questions and more are getting answered in there. Happy developing.